Hello and welcome to Budget Model Railways. And we're still with N at the moment. So I've been really quite captivated with the potential of N, especially for smaller compact layouts. It's all very well trying to do them in double O, but it takes a lot of space. So this layout, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail in a minute, but is only 3 feet by 9 inches. Now that means it would be 6 feet by 18 inches in double O to do the same thing. So that's quite a big saving. And it's all really because of these Kato freelance pocket line locos that are so smooth and reliable. Things like the Pico wagons. And that's just given me the opportunity to have the right locos and rolling stock, which is really what stopped me with N in the first place. So the potential of N is, as I say, this is only 3 feet by 9 inches. It's got a 2-row fiddle yard. So the idea, what I wanted to do was a compact layout, all in one. The trouble with doing this in double O is you end up having to add a sort of 2-foot fiddle yard off the back of it. This has given me the ability to have it all integrated. I've even got a controller there, and I'll show you the wiring in a minute. So this is freelance, and that also gives us some capabilities because it enables me, for instance, to put quite a small depth of platform here, because I can follow continental practice and have a small platform between the tracks. So that gives me 2 passenger lines there and a head shunt. It gives me a big siding there. And because of the way the track works, effectively what I've got there is an inglenook, because I've got 1, 2, 3 sidings and a point. So I can run it, this part as an inglenook siding with all the thousands of potential shunting moves. But I've also been able to add down the front here a kickback siding. So I'm hoping to be able to run a bit of a timetable out of this, which is something I've always wanted to do. Because the only disadvantage with the inglenook is the lack of a passing loop, particularly for passenger trains, which this gives me. I'll turn it round and I'll show you some of the features in the back. So the wiring is pretty simple. Both those 2 end tracks are wired. The wires come out here because the back of the board is hollow. So they're just, people ask how I do it, they're just wired in here. So you've got 2 wires coming into each and 1 wire out. Just make sure they're the same on each one. Because the board's hollow, here it's got a hole to put the fixings in. And I've run the wires down there and they come out under there. So it's all very neat. I think I've lost my focus there. There we go. And we just got one of our controllers on the end. What that means is that all the track is powered, but it means that all except this siding can be isolated from the points. So I've got no time for all this nonsense about you need isolated sections and things. Using modern Pico points to isolate, you don't. So I'll be able to run 1, 2, 3 locos if I want. I just won't be able to isolate that particular siding. But I'll be able to isolate that good siding. I'll be able to run 2 trains through the loop at the same time. Parked, obviously. I don't need to be able to run more than 1 loco at once, so that's why I don't worry about DCC. This is just one of the IKEA self-supporting cantilever shelves. I get them for £2 or £3 from my local tip shop. So they make superb baseboards, very light and rigid. For the back scene, I've wanted to put curves in. Square angles don't work so well. It's harder to hide the back scene. It's a bit of a contrivance. But all I've done is scored the back of the board with a knife and curved it, which is what they do on some of the MDF that I've seen, which is where the idea came from. And N also gives me the opportunity to have quite a bit of scenery. So this is an idea I've seen before. This is going to be a road. So rather than this being a tunnel mouth, the usual hill here, I'll put a bit of a wall there and some back scene, and it'll be a road. And the road runs down, length of the layout, and we'll come to just a little car park and road area there. This is black foam packaging out of 3D printers. It doesn't bubble and splint and make loads of mess like polystyrene. You can carve it really easily, and that's what I'll do to do that. The road is just very thin serial packet cards supported. I was quite pleased with the walls. They are mounting board, so the board used to make frame pictures, scored with a bradawl, painted, and then just run watery paint into the stones. And that looks every bit as good as the very expensive plastic. Bit of a ballast mat there for a change, just quick and easy. That's the Gauge Master buildings, kestrel buildings. That's the bungalow, but repurposed as a station. Not sure what that is. It's a Marklin building, just a nice good shed. These came from an American set, so that gives me a nice little permanent way with a little Wickham trolley there. And this will give me a little hut, if I can get my camera to work, for a ground frame, just for the points. Now the ballast mat is from these people. I won't even try and pronounce it in German. I bought it on spec because it was cheap and because it would be brown and therefore different. It's probably one of the most successful ones I've used. Because the sleepers are basically dark brown, not black, the track does disappear into it and it becomes much harder to tell that it's not ballasted. And the platforms are just, again, mounting board, and this happened to be a grey mounting board that looks a bit like concrete. So paint the edges and put that on. So I filmed it at this stage really to give you sort of an idea of how it's going to be constructed, so that when I crack on, this has taken a sort of week of evenings so far, it's easier to see how I made it. I know N isn't for everybody, and I know freelance N in particular probably isn't, but it does give you an awful lot of scope. I would do UK outline if the locomotives and rolling stock were as cheap and reliable as the Cato, but they're not. And they're substantially more expensive. And we are budget model railways, and that's why this project's carrying on with freelance N. And it gives me the scope to do what I want to do in a much smaller area. I did talk to somebody at the Shunting show and can't help feeling that if Hornby had gone for N, not TT, that would have been a game changer if they could have kept the prices down. But there you go. So there we are. I will do an update on this one. Look forward, as always, to your comments. Always very interesting to see. Interestingly, although the N gets less views, it gets a lot more comments, which is interesting. So there we go. Let me know what you think of this one. Thank you for watching, and I'll do an update soon.